Look, I've been running detention facilities for 17 cycles. 17. I've processed criminals from 462 different species. I've seen beings that could melt solid titanium with their spit, creatures that phase through walls, and one memorable individual who could detonate his own organs and regrow them for fun. Fun! Can you imagine that? So, when they told me a human was being transferred to my facility, I laughed. Actually laughed right in front of my entire security team. A human, I said. All four of my stalks blinking in amusement. One of those soft, pink, weaponless bipeds from that backwater planet. The kind that die if the temperature changes by 20 degrees. Humans. The Galactic Council's security protocols are very clear, very thorough, very paranoid. Every species gets classified. Every species gets a threat assessment. Every species gets a file that tells us exactly how dangerous they are and what precautions we must take. Very scientific, very precise, very boring. Humans? Listed as Class F. Class F. Do you know what Class F means? Functionally harmless. The same as the pillow people of Fluffnack 7, literally made of down feathers and communicating through sneezes. I should have read the footnotes. The transport shuttle docked at Bay 7 with a hiss that echoed across the reception area. I was there personally. That's what a good warden does. I greet high-profile transfers. I make sure they understand where they are and what kind of place I run. Detention Center Kappa 9 has a 99.7% containment record. Only reason it isn't 100%? One incident with a sentient gas cloud. Barely counts that MY name is Krell. Warden Krell, and I take pride in my work. My security team rolled out 6 of my best guards around the containment pod. Standard procedure. The pod itself hummed with energy fields. Triple locked. Probably overkill for a Class F, but the council doesn't take chances. Politics. You understand? Always politics. Open it, I ordered, waving 2 of my mid-arms in the standard authorization gesture. The pod cracked open with a pneumatic sigh. And there he was. The human. Marcus Webb. According to his file, he stepped out slowly, blinking under the bright facility lights, and I got my first good look. Disappointing. Maybe 6 feet tall, tan skin, short dark hair, wearing a loose prisoner jumpsuit. No claws, no fangs, no armor, no extra limbs, no glowing frete displays. Just average. Completely forgettable. Welcome to Detention Center Kappa 9, I said, formal but not unkind. I am Warden Krell. You will surrender all weapons, contraband, and personal effects. You will comply with facility regulations. You will not cause trouble. Do you understand? He looked at me with those flat, brown eyes. 2 eyes, just 2. No glow, no rotation, no se devais blinking. But there was something in them, something that made my tertiary stomach clench a little. I understand, he said. Calm, quiet, almost amused. Excellent. Security, confiscate his items. And this is where it got funny, or at least I thought it was funny at the time. Looking back, the universe was laughing at me, not with me. Guard Voss stepped forward with the scanner, running it over the human from head to toe. The device beeped and displayed its findings. 1 metal ring on his left hand. Sentimental. 1 pair of soft-soled shoes. Standard. No hidden compartments. 1 mechanical chronometer. No networked. Couldn't be used for communication. That's it? I asked. That is it, sir, Voss confirmed, disappointment twitching his reptilian snout. That I looked at Marcus Webb again. You came to an interstellar summit with no weapons? None at all. The human smiled. Flat teeth. Not designed for tearing flesh. Didn't think I'd need any. I was there to talk, not fight. Clearly, the talking did not go well. I observed, gesturing to his prisoner status. He only smiled that little, unsettling human smile that we processed him through intake. Gave him regulation cell slippers, scanned his biometrics, the full procedure by the book. No resistance. No implants. No threats. He even thanked guard Therma when she handed him his bedding allotment. Thanked her, like it was a hotel, not a maximum security detention center holding warlords, terrorists, and worse that I watched him walk calmly between 4 armed guards, just like he was taking a casual stroll. No fear. No anxiety. Calm. That should have been my second clue. First clue was that smile. But I had a facility to run, reports to file, and a Thorian berserker arriving this cycle. Much more worthy of attention than one harmless human. What was the worst he could do? Bore us to death with stories about Earth's weather? Huh. The Council security team met us at the docking bay, a well-coordinated force of armored humans and aliens, all moving with the precision of a single organism. Marcus Webb walked calmly beside me, hands empty, expression unflinching. I had to remind myself to breathe. After everything, after the chaos, he had not once shown anger or malice. Just calm, measured focus. The transport shuttle waiting to receive him was sleek, standard council spec with automated security routines that could detect life forms before they even stepped aboard. The crew had been briefed extensively on the human in their care. For what I could tell, half of them were visibly nervous. I couldn't blame them. Marcus stopped at the threshold of the shuttle, glanced back at me with a small nod. "Thank you, Warden," he said again. His voice carried a weight of sincerity that I had not expected from someone who had just demolished half my security staff days earlier. "Don't thank me yet," I muttered, though I meant the opposite. "Just go peacefully. That's all I ask." He smiled faintly, the same smile that had haunted my thoughts since the cafeteria incident. "Peaceful is relative, Warden Krell, but I'll do my best." As he boarded the shuttle, I watched the guards assist him into the secure containment pod. Unlike other high-profile prisoners, he didn't resist or complain. Not once. The pod sealed with a pneumatic hiss. Marcus Webb was leaving Kappa 9, and the universe seemed quieter that I stayed at the docking bay long after the shuttle departed. My mind replayed every moment. The cafeteria, the intersection, the ventilation cover. It wasn't fear I felt. It was something else. Respect? Awe. Terrifying, measured respect. Humans, apparently, were unlike any other species I had ever encountered. Back in my office, I updated the incident report with precise detail, careful to note Marcus Webb's compliance, his reasoning, and the unusual effectiveness of human negotiation tactics. I included a personal note, one I doubted would ever be read. Class F is a lie. Class F is a trap for the unprepared. Humans are apex predators hiding behind smiles and diplomacy. Treat them as harmless at your peril. Krell later, when the council sent follow-up communications, I received an apology. Apparently, the oversight with Marcus Webb's classification had caused minor operational disturbances across several facilities. I didn't respond. There were no words that could fully express what had happened, not without sounding like a cautionary tale for galactic bureaucrats. For the first time in 17 cycles, I questioned what it meant to judge a species on paper. Ratings, classes, threat assessments. They were meaningless without understanding the context, the culture, the evolutionary history. Humans had survived the impossible, endured the absurd, and thrived because of their persistence and ingenuity. And if you underestimated them, you paid the price that I pour myself a new cup of Yin's juice, finally able to sit down without shaking hands or racing hearts. The facility hummed along as usual, prisoners oblivious, guards exhausted but relieved, and I, Krell, Warden of Kappa 9, realized that sometimes the most dangerous beings are not the ones with claws, venom, or armored plating. Sometimes the most dangerous are the ones who look harmless, smile politely, and insist on doing what is right. Marcus Webb would be returning to the Council in 3 cycles. And somewhere, I knew, the galaxy had learned a valuable lesson. Never underestimate a human. The Council chambers were a frenzy of whispered debates and hurried communications when Marcus Webb arrived. High-level diplomats, security officers, and representatives from dozens of species were all present, their faces a mixture of awe, confusion, and barely concealed fear. Even at a formal tribunal, Marcus walked calmly, like a man strolling into his own living room that I watched from the viewing gallery, hidden behind reinforced glass, as the hearing began. The charges were read: disturbing the peace, unauthorized assembly, minor civil disobedience at the Interstellar Summit. The representatives who had pushed for his arrest glared at him, expecting a flustered human, someone who might beg or plead. Marcus Webb smiled. Not smugly, not arrogantly, just a small, confident smile. He stood, hands visible, and addressed the council in a voice that carried across the chamber. I am here because I exercise my right to speak on behalf of workers who cannot defend themselves. I did so peacefully. I ask only for fairness, accountability, and recognition of their humanity. There was a pause, a strange quiet, as if the entire chamber had forgotten to breathe. Humans had a way of doing that, holding attention without demanding it, commanding respect without aggression. Questions came next, procedural, probing, some hostile. Marcus answered each with patience and clarity, citing council regulations, labor rights, and precedents from interstellar law. When asked why he had fought back at Kappa 9, he explained calmly, "I defended myself against violence while under detention. I did not seek to harm, but I was prepared to survive." Self-defense is a right recognized by the council and by law. One of the Thorian representatives, still nursing a bruised arm from the cafeteria incident, muttered something about human arrogance. Marcus glanced in their direction, brown eyes flat but unwavering. "Arrogance," he said softly, "is surviving long enough to understand what matters. It's not arrogance, it's persistence, patience, and the refusal to give up on justice." The room was silent. Even seasoned counselors shifted uncomfortably. Humans had a way of exposing assumptions, of challenging the expected norms of diplomacy and power. And Marcus Webb was demonstrating that skill with terrifying efficiency. After what felt like hours, but was likely minutes, the verdict was read. Time served. A formal apology from the council representatives who had insisted on his arrest. Marcus Webb would walk free with his reputation intact and, in many cases, enhanced. Outside the chambers, I met him as he exited. "Warden Krell," he said, nodding politely, "I assume your facility survived my departure." I grunted. "Barely. You may be the first human I've met who can both terrify and impress me at the same time." He chuckled, a low, even sound. "We try. It's a species trait. Diplomacy first, persistence always, surprise as a backup plan." As he walked toward the transport shuttle, returning him to Earth, I realized something. Humans were no longer just another species in the Galactic Council. They were a force. Adaptable, persistent, unpredictable. Dangerous, but in a way that respected rules, principles, and logic. They could charm, negotiate, and fight with equal effectiveness, and Marcus Webb had demonstrated all of it in under a week. Back at Kappa 9, the story of Marcus Webb became legend. Inmates and guards alike told tales of the calm human who faced 3 Thorns, 10 guards, and still walked away with dignity and control. Warnings circulated quietly in high-security circles. Never underestimate a human, especially one who looks harmless. For me, Warden Krell, the lesson was personal. Authority, rules, and classifications were only as good as the knowledge behind them. The universe could not be managed with complacency, not with humans in it. And somewhere deep down, I knew that this was only the beginning. The galaxy had met its newest apex predator, and it wore the guise of a polite, smiling human named Marcus Webb. Back at Kappa 9, life slowly resumed its rhythm, though nothing was quite the same. Guards moved with a bit more caution, inmates gave more space, and whispers of the human circulated like an unseen presence. Marcus Webb's name had become a legend even without him being there. I, Warden Krell, had to admit it. It was unnerving. Reports now included caveats: human present, exercise caution, observe behavior for unexpected problem solving, and even do not assume harmlessness. My containment procedures had evolved in a matter of cycles, adapting faster than I had thought possible. Humans did that, I realized. They adapted. They learned. They improved. Be why the second cycle after his departure, Marcus' influence was evident. The Thorians who had been in the cafeteria incident now avoided confrontations. They gave each other wary glances and kept interactions with humans strictly polite. Zelkrim inmates, normally territorial and mistrustful, began cautiously sharing their games and routines with the human cultural database materials. Even the Pillow people, always considered harmless, seemed emboldened by his example. It was as if the mere presence of a human had rewritten social equations within the facility that I called a meeting with my senior staff. Guard Voss, Tharma, Grint, and the others filed in, each looking half expectant, half fearful. We need to discuss Marcus Webb's influence. I began. His time here has changed how the other inmates behave, how our guards react, and potentially the facility's security protocols. Voss snorted. You mean the guy who looks like he couldn't punch through a carbon steel wall is now running social dynamics in the prison? Yes, I said flatly. Precisely that. Tharma clicked her mandibles thoughtfully. Warden, it isn't just the fighting. It's the calm, the confidence, the ability to assert himself without aggression. Humans don't just survive, they make others respect them without trying. That's dangerous in a controlled environment. Grint grunted. I don't get it. He could have escaped, beat all of us, and made a run for it. Why didn't he? Principle, I muttered. Persistence. Discipline. Humans have a code they follow even when the rules don't protect them. Marcus Webb demonstrated it. And now, everyone else is recalculating what's safe and what isn't. That evening, I reviewed the incident reports again. The Thorns were quieter, more measured. The Zelkrim were cooperative. Even routine monitoring showed fewer disturbances overall. Marcus Webb had left, yet his presence lingered like a force field. IT got stranger the next day. The Human Cultural Database, the very books, games, and media Marcus had accessed, had become popular. Inmates were reading, discussing, and even practicing human methods of problem-solving and meditation. They were learning patience, strategy, and focus from materials designed for a species that had once been classified as functionally harmless. I leaned back in my chair, mandibles clicking with a mix of awe and disbelief. He's teaching them, indirectly. I muttered to no one in particular. Yes, sir, Tharma said quietly. And that's the problem. You can't control what humans teach others just by rules. Their influence isn't contained by walls or locks. It's ideas, strategy, persistence, and social intelligence. And those are the hardest things to guard against. I sighed. Marcus Webb had done something no prisoner had ever managed in the history of Kappa 9. He'd rewritten the social hierarchy without violence, without coercion, without even being here physically. I stared at the reports. Somewhere in my gut, I knew this was the beginning of a long lesson. Humans were more than apex predators. They were influencers of reality itself, capable of altering the behavior of species far stronger, faster, and deadlier than themselves, all through calm confidence, logic, and strategy. And somewhere, far across the galaxy, Marcus Webb was preparing for his trial, completely unaware of the ripple effect he had left behind. That I closed the reports and looked out over the facility. Kappa 9 hummed with its usual activity, but it felt different. Safer? Less predictable? I wasn't sure. All I knew was that my understanding of humans and my ability to manage them had just been completely rewritten 0.3 cycles ago. I thought I was the one in control. Now, I wasn't even sure I was keeping up. The trial chamber was vast, a cathedral of steel and light, where representatives from 3 galactic councils had gathered. Marcus Webb stood in the center, calm, composed, a single human among hundreds of alien species whose eyes and judgment were fixed upon him. The prosecution was relentless. They recounted every escape attempt, every minor infraction, every rumor of influence Marcus had exerted. He is a danger, one Thorn delegate insisted, clicking his mandibles nervously. He bends others to his will without force. He disrupts hierarchies. He cannot be trusted. And yet, the witnesses spoke differently. Inmates who had once been aggressive, now more measured, testified on Marcus' behalf. They spoke of strategy, of leadership without violence, of lessons learned. Even Warden Krell, reluctantly, gave testimony. This human does not operate by fear. He operates by principle. I have no protocol for managing this kind of intelligence. The chamber fell silent. The council had heard the data, observed the social shifts, and witnessed the proof. Marcus Webb's influence had reshaped behavior without coercion, without threat, without destruction. The verdict was unexpected, cleared of all charges, with a recommendation for monitored release. The room erupted in a mixture of shock, disbelief, and grudging respect. Marcus simply bowed his head, acknowledging the ruling, and walked out. Not triumphant, not boastful, but quietly victorious. Back at Kappa 9, the ripples of his presence remained. Guards continued to adjust procedures, not out of fear, but out of respect for the human capacity they'd witnessed. Inmates retained the lessons, the strategies, the patience, and problem-solving Marcus had imparted indirectly. Social dynamics had shifted permanently. Kappa 9 was quieter, more controlled, not by walls, but by ideas. Warden Krell watched from his office, mandibles clicking softly. "I thought I understood control," he muttered. "I thought discipline was enforced with walls and locks. But humans teach differently. They don't break you. They change you." Somewhere beyond the galaxy, Marcus Webb reflected on the trial with characteristic humility. He didn't seek recognition, didn't crave power. He simply followed his code, his logic, his humanity. And in doing so, he had demonstrated a principle older than any empire. True strength lies not in domination, but in influence, understanding, and the courage to act with integrity. Kappa 9 would never be the same, nor would the galactic authorities, who now had to reconsider how they measured threat, intelligence, and leadership. Marcus Webb had passed through their systems, untouched by fear, unshaken by prejudice, and had left behind a legacy that could not be contained. The galaxy, vast and indifferent, had just learned a subtle truth. Sometimes the smallest presence, the calmest mind, and the most principled heart could shift tides in ways no weapon ever could. And somewhere in the silence of the stars, Marcus Webb disappeared into the crowd, leaving the universe a little wiser, a little more cautious, and a lot more impressed with humanity.